Getting going on episode 55 of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Howe, alongside my co-host, Travis Cunningham. This is, of course, a show brought to you by our friends at Ohsweken Speedway and Bicknell Racing Products. Don't forget to grab your race tickets and race passes prior to race day for Merrittville Speedway at our friends at Van Sickle Pet Value and Lundy's Lane Pet Valley. Travis, it's episode 55. Who comes to mind for number 55?
He had switched his number in the recent years that he raced, but I always knew him best as 55, and that's Vince Fargnoli. Holy moly, it's Vince Fargnoli. He drove 55 for as soon as I came into dirt for quite a long time until he switched to 90. So I'm going with him.
Shout out to his, was it his cousin or his nephew? I want to say nephew, Wayne, who I went to high school with. So I'm pretty sure if I got that right, that's the relation. But also I want to give a shout out to my pal, Mikey Bobby. And I say pal because he's a regular listener of not just this show, but also Hits FM. And he's almost bordering on prize pig category. There's a term we use in radio for anybody who tries to win multiple prizes and calls in and gets through all the time. We start to call them prize pigs. And every time I talk to him, the guy's like, "Oh yeah, I got in for this contest. I got in for that. I got through for this." So I don't know how he does it, but if you're a Hits FM listener, you obviously got to talk to Mike Thorne, Mikey Bobby, aka Prize Pig. Although I don't know how much he's actually won from us. So. But yeah, shout out to him. And why don't we start with Ohsweken? We'll kind of walk through the weekend. We'll start with Ohsweken, and then we'll get to where you were on the Friday night. But over at Ohsweken, the late model opens made their appearance. Greg Haskell gets the win over CJ Field, Jason Haskell, Brian Spielman, and Cody Vandewink. I think it's Wink, right? Winkle.
Some of the names are tough.
Yeah. I'm going to say Vandewinkle. Sorry, the L is right. Blurring together. But yeah, that late models were a part of that. You can go back. And reminder that if you miss out on any Ohsweken stuff and you hear us talk about it and you want to kind of go back and watch, it is available on GeForce TV to go back and watch all of the races from this season for Ohsweken Speedway. Over in the Oakwood Transport Action Sprint Tour West Series.
The one thing I wanted to say about the late models is the cool part about that race at Ohsweken is it's open late models versus crates, and it's always has been. I'm pretty sure that's why I'm pretty sure it's called the open versus crate shootout. At least it used to be. Yep. But this year, the way the track's been a little bit heavier than years past, an open motor was able to win. But I know last year Andrew Hennessy won it crate, and I know Rob Pitts has won that in the past with a crate. So that's a pretty cool thing where it's crates versus opens, and they're pretty competitive usually. But yeah, this year probably definitely hand it to the opens, which clearly Greg Haskell.
Over in the Action Sprint Tour West Series, Mac DeMann gets the win over Lance Erskine, Steve Murdoch, Sheldon Bender, and Johnny Miller. That is your top 5 there in night 1 of the Action Sprint Tour. We're not done talking about them. We'll get to them a little bit later on. Give a call to Curtis Gartley, plus 10 for the hard charger as well. Couple guys had some rough runs too, like Brett Stratford was a DNF, Dale Curran, Austin Rose, Brian Nanicoke didn't quite make it to the end. Mike Bowman had a piece of mud come up from the racetrack and destroy his front wing. I talked to his crew the day after. Shout out to the Beef, breaking it all down for me and why Mike Bowman ended up 19th. But yeah, it was a tough night for some in the crates over at Ohsweken.
That Dale Curran wreck was gnarly.
Yeah, it
another one where the total car came apart and everything, and everyone's all, "Oh, the car!" Like, if you're gonna hit a nose dive like that while you're flipping, like every car is gonna look terrible after. So it's just him and Aaron both landed bang right on the nose, and that's the world's worst hit, and it feels the worst in the car, other than coming straight down on all 4 wheels as a driver. But yeah, what a hit! Crow was not Brian Nanicoke. I felt real bad for him because he's my buddy.
Yeah,
and yeah, he was a little upset, to say the least.
Just a little bit. Over in the Middleport Mechanical Thunderstocks, surprise, surprise, Dave Bailey wins it over Ryan Beagle. Then Rob Hoskins with a solid 3rd place finish over Ryan Dinning and Ken Sargent. Give a call to Hoskins. That's not a name that we talk a lot about inside the top 5, but always consistently showing up to these Thunderstock events, and glad to see him get rewarded with a podium spot.
He used to write like an engine column somewhere. I don't know if it was Inside Track or somewhere, but I used to always read it. So he's got some knowledge, and I think he does both asphalt and pavement, or he has. So he's been around. I've seen him run good, and I think mini stock too, and street stock.
And Ryan Hiller got the win in the HRW Automotive Mini Stocks over Ashton Dickey, Mike Sarantakos, Lofton Schutz, and Dylan Bonner.
Schutz.
Schutz?
That's
I
the
said.
installation
See, I
guy's
was wanted to
son.
say it shoots like a German or
Alex
something, but
Schutz.
there's no accent aigu.
Insta.
Should have known.
Yeah, the thing about the mini stock thing I seen was Dusty DeBoer hurt himself real bad
Yeah,
in the foot.
that
That's what
was
I want to.
scary.
That sucks.
Yeah, that
Hope
is
he's
a
feeling better
long
soon.
list of injuries. But there is an update from DeBoer's Motorsports page, so you can go and check that out, and if you want to see the full list of injuries. But he definitely has a long road of recovery ahead of him. But glad to hear he's in good spirits, and uh, shout out to a guy who's just trying to put it together and come out with whatever kind of car he can put
His
together. Right?
$1,000 car, he calls it. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that
Right.
was his bomb. That was his bomber before they
Yeah.
killed the bomber class that used to race in the infield oval, which no longer exists because it's Victory Lane.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good for him to fight that out, and I just wishing for a speedy recovery for him. That's
Yeah.
scary stuff, and it's
Too
kind
much
of
wrecking going on these days. Let's have a clean Friday this week. That'd be great.
yeah, and it's kind of we have a good guest to talk about in terms of
Yep.
wrecking and kind of the danger of it. So we'll get to that interview a little bit later on, but we're going to get a different perspective, not necessarily a driver perspective, when it comes to some of these scarier incidents at the racetrack. Want to get into Humberstone on Friday night, where we were both at.
Ransomville.
Ransomville. I'm looking at the Humberstone page right now. Pardon me. Looking too far ahead. Over at Ransomville, we got to talk about your ESS run, which was quite impressive. I was in attendance for this one, kind of familiarizing myself with Ransomville Speedway before I come back and jump on the mic over there with Stephen Petty in a couple weeks from now. So just thought it was a good idea to get over there and kind of get an idea of what's going on again. And in particular, let's talk about the Empire Super Sprints, because you put on one heck of a show, especially on the
I
restart.
wouldn't go that far. Yeah, I passed 2 cars on the late restart, which gained me an extra 100 and so US, which was pretty cool. But time trials sucked. I definitely need to hit turn 3 and 4 harder next time I go there. I wasn't quite wide open around there. You definitely needed to be, so had to start far back in my heat. And past a couple cars got into the transfer and then screwed up 3 and 4, and they drove around me like I was tied to a fence post. So I had to start last, which in the end did work out because I was able to go 17th to 11th and get the hard charger, which was an extra $50. So I was honestly surprised not any more Ohsweken cars showed up. I get people are saving their stuff and all that kind of stuff, but like it pays so well. $475 US for 11th plus the 50 for hard charger, and then every time, I think it's every 11th place or something, there's a pinnacle award or something. I got 5 free gallons of fuel. I'm not going, but I would have my entryway paid in this Friday at Mohawk. Just a little too far for me, 5 hours away. Going to Ohsweken instead. But yeah, so that's like almost close to 700 Canadian for a little trip over the border. It wasn't far for me, so I'm always harping that we need to get more money to start. So for me to skip that one, which was 300 to start US and all that, 45 minutes from my house, probably not a smart idea on my part. So I went there, and yeah, Ransomville was fun. A little bit dusty in 3 and 4 in the end. They've been having trouble on track. They're working it, but it was smooth this time. What else?
Yeah,
Jacob Dykstra was there.
Yeah, from all accounts, that was the best the track's been. Jacob Dykstra went for a wild ride, popped like a crazy wheelie, came down,
Yeah, he had an
and I think that
awesome
ended up
heat.
broke his suspension and kind of had to pull it into the inside. Ryan Turner also was there, but
He had a rough night
he
too.
had a rough night in starting with a heat wreck, and then he looks like, I guess they got the car back together enough to roll some laps, and then he got lucky actually, and I think Jonathan Preston had issues right off the hop of the green, so Ryan was able to pick up one spot at least.
And that was an extra $25. I was looking at that hard. 17th, yeah, 300 to, that's the first one that's not 300. 16th, 325.
Yeah.
But yeah, for them to even get it back on the track was pretty awesome, because his left front fell off going into 3 in the heat, and he piled the wall. And definitely went quiet for a second because he hit real hard, but it destroyed, like wrecked the whole car. They had to rebuild the whole car into bits.
Yeah, that was
and he's basically going out there, he said, to just see if the motor was okay and stuff. He knew they didn't get the brakes fixed, so that's why he was hanging back. But he was just making sure the motor was running good for Brighton the next day.
That's a good call on his part. Paulie Colagiovanni picks up the win in the Ron Lux Memorial. Shout that out. And I know you're saying, oh, it was only an 11th place finish. You picked up whatever spots because of some attrition and whatever else. But look at the guys who finished directly in front of you: Matt Farnham and
Oh,
Chuck Hebing.
I know.
It was a tricky night, and you were chasing those guys down towards the end. So give
I
yourself a little
was
pat in the back.
all over Hebing, and Farnham was getting bigger. He just missed the setup. He thought it was going to be on the top. The top blew off too much.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, even Paulie switched to the bottom. And that's how he got early leader Johnny Smith. You don't see him much. He spun out at Fulton right in front of me. And oh, man, I just missed him. That's what I'm going to remember him for a while. But yeah, he was hammering the top, won his heat race. He was doing good. But then the top just went away. Paulie switched. Got him.
Should give a
Sean
shout out.
Donoff ended up second.
Yeah, should give a shout out to our other winners too. And the sportsman, Brett Senek. Brett Senek gets the win. Matt Hornquist in the mini stocks, and in the novice sportsman, DJ Rosinski, I should say.
Yeah, struggling with car counts a little bit over there. They didn't have the street stocks or nothing, but Sportsman had a good, healthy field. Adam Leslie was there. I was watching him mostly in the feature go forward. Nelson always goes there as well, but I think that was Adam's first trip over there. I'm not sure yet, but he was there doing good. And their novice class, yeah, we had like a local guy in that too. Wayne Swinson, he picked up the win last week or 2 weeks ago or something. But yeah, I've seen that kid since go-karts, and he's super young, 14.
Yep.
And I was even bugging Paul at work. I'm like, hey, your kid's almost 13. You might want to haul him over to the novice class.
Does the novice class, like, would you be in favor? I don't think there's really a place for it at Merrittville per se, but
we already tried it before your time.
Yeah,
did you know that?
I did know that, but that's why I'm saying I don't think there's a place for it to come back really with 5 divisions. We have a pretty full night, yeah.
No, they were trying to hope, like, because Fulton and like some tracks in the States, they get like 40 plus regular sports and then a full field of novice.
Yeah.
So they were hoping it would take off like that, but didn't quite do that. So
yeah, we have other ways to develop.
That's how Trevor
talent.
Wright started, though. And that's how you got to start.
It's a good way to come through if you can make the trip over to Ransomville. And like I say, I'll be back there to call racing on the 23rd of June. And I think I'm doing a show there the 14th as well of July. So looking forward to those 2 dates and working with my pal, Stephen Petty. Maybe we'll have to get him on the show and have him break down the season at Ransomville. By all accounts, that was the best best shape the track's been in so far. So, yeah, things are on the up and up over at Ransomville.
I had lots of fun. There's no doubt about it. It feels like Merrittville. Like I was sitting in turn 4, getting ready to fire off for the feature, and just how the grandstands are the same color. All the railings are painted white. It's got the big long booth, just like Merrittville.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of feels like Merrittville. That's why they were sister tracks back in the day.
Yeah. We want to let's get to Merrittville now first, because there's I think a little less to talk about on that side of things compared to breaking down Brighton. So let's start with the Corpac merchandising 358s, 6 for 6. Matt Williamson gets the win over Gary Lindbergh, Scott Wood, Brad Rouse, and Freddie Carlton. Yeah, not necessarily a surprise, but Matt did have to come from 12th, so we can say that he had to move his way forward. Also want to give a shout out to our pal Shane Pierce, went 11th to 6th. Pretty good run for the 88. Probably, I think, his best finish of the season, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And our boy Dalton Slack ends up going 14th to 7th, and that's even with bringing out a caution after, I believe, some contact from Mr. Small Block Pete Bicknell. I'm not 100% sure what caused that caution, but I did see out of the corner of my eye right before the yellow flew that Dalton was backwards in corner 4, and I was like, well, I don't think he got there on his own, but maybe.
Yeah, wasn't there, so I can't say anything.
Yeah, not 100% sure what happened there. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Dalton about it either. But yeah, Matt gets the win over the modifieds, unsurprising. And you made a great point about Matt. We were talking kind of off air. I think this is at work, actually. And, we were talking about, you're like, well, want to know why Matt wins all those races at Merrittville? It's because by the time he gets to Merrittville, it's the 4th race of the week for him. And that's so true, right?
That's not the only reason, but it definitely helps.
Yeah.
Everyone else hasn't raced since the 7 days before. Matt's been somewhere else. He was at Albany, Saratoga last night. Was supposed to be at Airborne tonight. Rained out. He'll be at Ransomville Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Most guys at Merrittville don't run Ransomville, so he's already just running that. He's got one in the bag on him.
Exactly.
Whereas back in the day, so many more guys would do the Ransomville Merrittville. Like when I raced modified, I was one of them, but lots of the guys I raced with, like Robbie Curl, Rick Rickner, Rich Vinson, I'm missing some. They would all do both.
Mm-hmm.
Pete still does both. Matt does both. But like, there's at least 6, 7 guys that would do both. Probably more back in the day. And it just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But there is something to be said for racing experience and time behind and seat time and everything that goes
That's
into
everything.
that, right? It's so I'm a big believer in the 10,000 hours rule. So I'm sure there's more than a few drivers out there that have more than 10,000 hours, but the hours in a week that Matt gets behind the wheel, it definitely goes a long way towards helping him be as good as he is at Merrittville. Over in the sportsman, Cody McPherson goes ninth to first to win it. His second win of the year, if I've got that correct. Yeah, he does. Second win of the year. James Friesen ends up in second. Adam Leslie third. Jordan Costco fourth. Another great run from the 17C. And Chad Chevalier.
17C.
Chad
Top
Chevalier
5.
goes top 5 as well. But yeah, it's been a good little
JC
year in the sportsman.
17C. Yeah. I'm just more pumped about Jordan Costco because he works with us and
yeah,
we get to pump his tires when he runs good. And Travis Miller's his crew chief.
well,
Well,
I don't
not
think
pump his tires as much because it was all driver.
Yeah, there you go, Travis. I do want to say though that it is nice to see some guys who are having rebound runs in the sportsman like Jordan. I don't think 2022 went the way that he wanted it to necessarily, but he's really strung together some solid runs in the last little bit. Got to give a call to Justin Sharp too, an impressive drive. He went from
Yeah, what happened
19th
to
to
him?
7th.
Yeah, but I saw some post he put on Facebook about he had trouble in the heat. And then like a whole bunch of people had to pitch in with parts and stuff. And what
Um,
happened there? Do
I
you
can't
remember?
I can't remember why. I do remember him pulling off. Now I'm trying
So yeah,
to
he
jog my
turned a rough
memory.
night bad anyways.
Yeah, yeah, because he DNF'd. Jay Mallory was also a DNF in that one, and Terry Smith. I'm trying to remember if that was Terry Smith got DQ'd, and I'm trying to remember what exactly that was for and whether Justin Sharp was involved. Now I really don't remember. I'm trying to. I don't
If there was
remember.
G-Force Light, we would remember. Oh,
Well, I mean, just any kind of documentation, it does help that for these particular incidences, because we've had a couple incidents where it'd be nice to kind of go back and be like, okay, what really happened? Like, even in the feature race, I'm trying to remember, like, Rob Knapp got DQ'd, and I'm trying to remember what he was involved with. We had more than a few cars end up DNF'd,
I think that was a
but
carryover from the week before.
I thought so too. So yeah, I'm struggling to remember what happened in that one because it felt when I was going back and writing my race report, all I could think about was like the lead because the lead was great. Like Adam Leslie jumped out to the front and he had a good run. And I was watching Costco move through the field. I was watching Chad Chevalier come up through the field. Rob Pitts started on pole, hung on to finish sixth. He had a good run. So
Pitsy.
good to see Thumper back out there. Sharp drove up through the field. Like he had a big recovery. It just there was so much great action at the front of the field and only actually I think 2 actual cautions on the racetrack. I was just like that's where all my attention goes. I think a lot of
Yep.
times I sleep on the drama sometimes rather than actually pay attention to it. There was a little bit of drama that I want to ask you about. We're going to
Oh
end off
boy.
with the action sprint tour, but before we get to them, in the mod lights, Brent Bigelow gets the win. Chris Watson had the lead for the majority of the race, probably led 15 to 17 laps, if I remember correctly. And with 3 laps to go, Brent gets him by doing, he dove to the inside through 3 and 4. And on the exit of 4, Watson crosses him back over, gets to his inside. And then there's contact. Brent tries to slam the door, but he slams the door and his right rear touches Watson's his left rear hits Watson's right front and going into 1 and Watson spins, kind of has his night ruined, kind of a bummer. And in that incident, because I come from the world of like rookie series go-karting right now, where we're like, if you're alongside, you have the right to hold your spot and they can't close the door on you. But I feel like, obviously dirt racing's a little bit different. So from my perspective, I was like, that was a bit of an aggressive block from Bigelow. And again, you don't have the luxury of seeing it, but from how I'm describing it, in
No.
the case of Bigelow versus Watson, Bigelow being on the outside, Watson being on the inside. Is it on Watson to lift or is it on Bigelow to leave racing room? What's the driver etiquette thing to do there?
Well, in those cars, when you can fit 10 wide in the corners, I'm going to go with maybe should have left the lane.
Yeah.
Do you have to crowd the guy all the way to the guardrail when there's literally 8 other lanes to run in those cars?
Mm-hmm. And it simply could have been it simply could have been that Brent didn't realize how much or like how close Chris had gotten back on, because the way Brent shot off of 4, you would think he would have cleared Chris, but Chris got a great drive off the bottom when he did the crossover move to get
Was he
back to the
to his
inside.
number?
I can't say he was to his number. Like, that's why I'm like, I think Chris could have lifted and at least held on to his second spot, but when you just got passed for the lead with 2 laps to go, like, obviously he's going to try to sail it in on the bottom there. So I think it was just one of
That's
them
it. If it
racing
was 2
deals.
laps to go, there's nothing. Don't matter. If
Yeah.
it was lap 1, we got a different story. But
Yeah.
if he wasn't to his number, you got to be to the number.
Yeah. Right. That's why I said, like,
Or
his
like sprint
left.
car, you got to be to like the driver opening,
Yeah, that makes
right?
sense. Yep.
Modified, it's really hard to see. That
Yeah.
is a fact about modifieds. Hard to see. You got to almost hear and just know. You also know. You can feel if a guy's there as well. Like you can just sense it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those things where initially I was like, "Oh, I really don't like that block from Brent." And then I was like, "Well, wait, maybe he didn't know he was there." And because they hit, right front to left rear, I was kind of like, "Oh, maybe that's not as much of a case as I thought." Because like you say, if it was front or sorry, right front to like left door bar, like that's a little bit of a different story. But that wasn't the case. So
Yeah. So if the tires touched, he's almost there.
yeah,
That's like, yeah, the great. Lift. If you don't lift, you let the guy. Yeah, it's just tough.
one of them racing deals.
He should next time he'll know to stay on it a little bit longer and hit him perfectly square, right front to left front.
Yeah.
You can either lift or drive. Like don't lift, and 8 tires are better than 4 in that situation.
Yeah. It was an interesting night anyways in the mod lights, and a great finish. That series has been really putting on some great racing so far. So shout out to the mod lights. And we've got to touch on the Van Sickle Pet Value PV on the Lane 4-cylinders. 5th different winner in as many races. Austin Worstro gets the monkey off his back, and he's back in victory lane. Wins it over Cole Hardy, our previous guest last week. Alex Riley, who we had on a couple weeks ago. Rick Beals and Blair Russell has a top 5 as well in that division. So shout out to Austin Worstro for getting back in victory lane.
Yep. I just love the diversity in that class this year because last year it was the Tyler LaFaunesty show and I was getting sick of it. So
yeah,
cool to see a bunch of them get wins this year.
And if you're looking at the timing and scoring, or you're looking at the scoring of the event over on MerrittvilleSpeedway.com, nope, you are not seeing a misprint. Tyler LaFaunesty and Kyle Rothwell both got DQ'd for their incidents involving John Lubeck. I didn't see the initial. I didn't see what made Rothwell so mad. I just saw Rothwell kind of was kind of like bump drafting Lubeck at one point. Then my eyes shifted away, and then the next thing I know, Rothwell's driving over him, and then Lubeck was able to keep going on. Rothwell had to pull off, or he got DQ'd, and then Tyler kind of stepped up for his teammate and finished the job coming to the checkers anyways. So there was some fisticuffs, at least with the race cars on the racetrack at Merrittville in the 4-cylinders. So that is definitely a reason to make sure you get back to your seat from the intermission.
One of those a year.
Yeah, right. So
most classes are.
Now let's get to the second night of the Oakwood Transport Action Sprint Tour West Series. Mike Bowman starts on pole, gets the win over Brett Stratford, Lance Erskine, Matt Billings, and Al Slate. One of those deals where Brett Stratford actually seemed like he was the faster of the two, but he just ran out of laps coming forward through the field. And I think just didn't catch the cautions in the right spots for him to really make any kind of move on Mike, who just had the ultimate track position of starting on pole. And good runs from Lance Erskine this week, 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah, he's definitely been coming into his own. I'm good buddies with his crew guy, Ron McGarry, and we were talking to him. I was talking to him opening night, just talking about him and stuff like that. And yeah, they're definitely getting that thing dialed in. And yeah, Stratford, that's the redraft for you, 7th versus 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to Al Slate, 5th. I think that's first top 5 in the crates. He's just starting out again, but he's a wheelman in my opinion. Almost won the Sportsman Championship in 06 at Merrittville. And what else? Or it might have been 05. I can't remember what. It was one of those years. What was I gonna say? Only 16 cars. That's the thing. So yeah, lots of people worried about car counts. Like there was only 17 at Ransomville because that's a far hike for all the ESS boys, and only 16 crates at Merrittville. SOS actually outdrew them. So traveling's just tough. Most people got other stuff going on, and 37 cars at Ohsweken and only 16 at Merrittville for the crates. So shows you that most of the crates just want to run the res.
Yeah, pretty much, right? That seems to be the way things want to go, which is kind of it's funny. Like I've kind of thought Mac Demand might try to follow it up and go for it the next night, but
he's not even racing this Friday. He's always got a wedding or something to do once a year or twice. Yeah, he's always got something else going on too. Well, I mean, people got stuff going on.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't, but they do.
Me neither, buddy. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Folks from Vansicle Pet Value and PV on the Lane aren't just fans of your favorite four-legged friends, they are race fans too. That's why Jeff and Rhonda Riley, as well as their staff, have teamed up with Merrittville Speedway to make your race day experience more convenient. Race fans can now pick up tickets for race nights while grabbing the highest quality food, treats, toys, and accessories for their pets from the St. Catharines and Niagara Falls locations. Each grandstand ticket will also have a voucher that can be used in-store for a free pet bath at their dog wash stations. Drivers and crew members can also skip the line by purchasing pit passes in-store, giving them more time to get their rides ready for Saturday nights. Check out Vansicle Pet Value across from Best Buy and Walmart on 4th Avenue in St. Catharines, and PV on the Lane at the corner of Kayla Road and Lundy's Lane, Highway 20. Over in Brighton, let's talk about the SOS and what you got up to on your Saturday night.
Yeah, so that was one of my most embarrassing performances ever at Brighton. Started out with a little bit of bad luck. Just pushing out for hot laps, which is timed hot laps in SOS, so you definitely got to be on the game. I must have picked up a right front flat on one of the rocks in the pits because we have to do a long push there, go all the way around a pole, do a hard left. And yeah, went to get on the gas, pushed right off the track. I thought I just missed the corner, wrangled it and got back on, and it drove right off the track again in 3 and 4. And then at that point, I knew something was wrong, and I got back to the pits, and the right front was on the rim, and that pretty much wrecked my night. Track was way slicker than I imagined. Usually it's hammered down there in hot laps, but hot laps was pretty feather the pedal. Dylan Westbrook, his night went from bad to good as he blew a right front steer tire on the toter home on the way there, blew the fender right off. The pictures were like, I would have just gave up at that point because holy, but they didn't. They found another tire, got her on there, drove the rest of the way with no fender, and then he put it to us. Darren Dryden second. Awesome run for him. He did a real good job. Has Steve Moulton as crew chief, who also used to be D-Dub's crew chief. So definitely Steve knows what's going on at Brighton. He's been there about 10 zillion times, as he also used to be Glenn Steyer's crew chief. What else?
Yeah, Mitch Brown brings it home third. Sean Evans fourth. Corey Turner fifth. You just you kind of nailed it. It was another Westbrook night. $100 in the quick time for him. Also, shout out to Chris Jones for earning the hard charger in that series as well.
We got to talk about the 9th place debacle.
Yeah, I wanted to know what your take was on this whole thing, and if you can break it down for people who may be confused as to why there are 3 9th places on the press release. Excuse me, 4.
Yeah, there was a Ryan Turner got put down a lap, and he wasn't because he and Jordan Poirier both got a little bad luck. Poirier ended up on his side, upside down, crumpled his wing. It wasn't that bad of a wreck. He just kind of tipped it over, wrecked the wings. But he loaded up quick and was back to Quebec. That was for sure. Ryan was in on that, and I guess they scored him a lap down after that, and he shouldn't have been. And I honestly wasn't even watching it then. I wondered if there was video, and I saw that some did come out today. So maybe we should have waited on the video to make that call. I don't know, because 4th, 9th places does feel. But Pete just felt terrible because I know Chris Jones put on Facebook that he was unhappy. And yeah, it was a huge debacle. They had to hold up payout. And Pete even said in the driver's meeting they're going to make mistakes. But I don't know what happened there. But yeah, ended up paying 4 people for 9th because they couldn't figure out the scoring.
Yeah. It's almost like a golf tournament. You have a tie. It's kind of what it reminds me of. Just end up pulling all those positions together. And
there is video now. I haven't watched it. I'm going to go watch it and see if I can figure out what happened just for my own brain. But because I pulled off, because I in the feature, I should have put a new tire on. Brighton's pretty hard on tires. I'm used to the hockey puck American racer that SOS used to run there. Should have put him. I had nothing, so I got lapped. I pulled to the infield, and Jones was right in front of me. So like he was the next car to get lapped. So like I want to see how that played out after I pulled off, because like maybe who knows what happened. But yeah, ended up with 4 ninth place finishers.
Yeah.
Shout out to Pete for paying. Like I don't know if it was me. Maybe I would have paid all of them for ninth and then had to make a call on the points, because that's tough to give 4 ninths in the points. That's the weird one for me. But I don't know. Yeah, tough sledding.
Yeah.
For the scoring debacle there at Brighton.
Yeah, tough situation, and there's sometimes things like that'll pop up where it's actually out of your control, and it seems like they managed it to the best of their abilities, and you're never going to make everybody happy in that sort of situation, but it is, you know what? It's nice. It's nice that they came to some kind of resolution, and you guys, what's the next stop for the Southern Ontario Sprints?
Well, it was supposed to be Southern Ontario Motor Speedway this Saturday, but that has been canceled as of today due to, check out the post on their Facebook page, something about the facilities not being ready. I'm wondering a little bit if it wasn't, maybe we knew not that many guys wanted to go again or something. I was going to go this time for sure, because they put this cool thing during the week where if you had said you were going to go by Wednesday, they were going to give you 300 to start.
Nice.
So that way they would know who's coming and all that. And that's my number. I want 300 to start. Like me personally, I think 358 modifieds and sprint cars should both be 300 start. Just gives teams a lot easier chance to break even on a night. And even if you got to cut a couple bucks off the top to make it happen, that's the way to do it, in my opinion. But
well, look at the ESS, right? It only paid $2,000.
Yeah, they're still $2,000 to win. They do a good job all the way through. Like all their, it's just
But I mean, like obviously we're talking Canadian.
They only have to worry about
dollars, but
one class, right?
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
Whereas tracks have to worry about more. But
yeah,
stuff like that. But yeah, just to get Anyway, so that's canceled. So the next race will be the Gary Cunningham Memorial at Merrittville Speedway.
Can't wait for that one.
I'm pumped for that. That one's gonna go off, no problems.
Yeah.
We got it handled, Johnny?
Yeah, we got it handled.
Not our first day there.
I got it on the announcer side. You got it on the driving side. Pete's gonna have it on the series side. It's gonna be a great time, and the track will be in great shape as well for your dad's race. So looking forward to that one. Before we get to that, also Merrittville Speedway going to be hosting Nostalgia Night next weekend, or this coming weekend, actually, I should say, June 17th. And I cannot wait to induct Guy McPherson and Larry Lampman to the CA Niagara Wall of Fame. You got a quick note or two on either of those guys for anybody who's relatively new to the sport?
Well, Guy McPherson, I know him from Tyler and Cody, watching him since they were kids in go-karts. Those kids would kick ass in go-karts. Then they moved all the way through. And Guy took over once they hit the sportsman ranks. They drove from Grant in the street stocks. But always had his coveralls on. He would tow those kids everywhere. Syracuse, and so but he had a whole driving career too, and I've seen him with lots of checkered flags in the old, because there's that one cool group, Merrittville, Ransomville, Humberstone Memories, and there's lots of pictures of Guy on there with checkered flags. So that's a whole other. I never got to see that part of Guy, but he's definitely deserving of the Hall of Fame. And then the one I do know, Larry Lampman Jr. It was like him and Pete Bicknell back in the day were the two goats of Merrittville when I first started 358s back in the mid 2000s. And like I say about Larry, I tell this story all the time. He was the guy that I'd be running 9th or 10th or something, and you'd see Larry right in front of you, a couple cars ahead, and you'd be like, oh man, hanging with Larry, feeling pretty good. And then suddenly lap 20, I don't know if his wife used to bust him all the time about this. Like, why don't you try earlier in the race? She would always be on him. But anyway, come lap 35, Larry's with the checker flag on the front stretch, and you're still back in 9th. So that was his thing. And he won the series race at Merrittville. A couple good runs at Syracuse with the Miller machine. Yeah. 3-time champ. Dad worked Larry Lampman Sr. worked the front desk at BRP forever. Like, he's almost borderline should be in there as a crew chief. Yeah. I miss those guys at the track.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Well, it's going to be a great night honoring them. I'm
going to have still there all the time.
I'm going to have the privilege of calling the modified feature, the 50-lap Jerry Winger Memorial, with Eric Thomas. You're going to come back and come back in the booth with us. So if you're coming to the racetrack, you're going to hear an extra voice on your Saturday night, and it's going to be one of a legend. If you're not sure who Eric Thomas is, well, we had him on the show, so make sure you go back and listen to some previous episodes of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. Let's move on to the Super Dirtcar Series and recap last night's action. And well, we had a little shift in points. We had I'm going to say a surprise winner. I would say a surprise winner, I think, and a little shift in the points affecting one of our own. So break it all down for us.
Albany, Saratoga, yeah, they had some rain day before. Track was a little heavier than normal. Yeah, Chris Heil, the Heil driver, first career Super Dirtcar Series win. Started on the hammer, but he had to drive the living snot out of it the whole way. Started sparking and stuff halfway through. Like, remember Matt won a race last year? He was throwing sparks. Same thing happened to Heil. Torque arm broke and stuff started hitting in there. In Victory Lane, this is how zoned in he was to try to get his first win. In Victory Lane, he said he never even felt nothing, but like that whole torque arm assembly under the seat was like shifting and hitting. So there was definitely some vibrations going on. I was wondering if he was going to make it, but yeah, I was super pumped for him. And then two locals rounded out the top three with DiLorenzo and Adam Pearson. Matt Shepard got a flat tire. I couldn't tell if it was flat or maybe he pulled like it was a flat tire to go in and change a compound maybe or something. But anyway, he stopped, brought out a caution, went in the pit, started last, and drove her all the way back to sixth. At that point, when I saw Shepard stop, I thought our boy Money Matt, was going to be able to get a good points night going on him, but Shepard clawed and he got a bunch of cautions helped Shepard, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Red and a bunch of stuff that definitely helped Shepard out. But Matt, like he wasn't in the redraw, so he went from the teens to eighth, so he was on a decent run as well. But yeah, Super Matt now leading by 4 points, 7-point swing. Money Matt was leading going in by 3. Now Super Matt leads by 4.
Yeah, and we should say Matt still had a pretty quality run. He went from 16th to 8th, so +8 on the night. But his kind of undoing was early in the night. I think he was fast
Knowing
time
Matt,
4th, and then just didn't quite get.
He'd be
moving
upset
up through
about
the
his time
heats,
trial in
so.
8. Yep,
Yeah.
that's everything.
Yeah, that's tough. But still, you know what? A 7th and 8th isn't horrible. And he did say that to win this championship, he needs his bad nights to be an 8th or so. So
Yep.
that's not the worst night. He's still right there with Matt Shepard. But yeah, Matt Shepard takes over the point lead for now. Over in the world of Outlaws, we should probably talk about what was a really scary incident involving Carson Macedo, where he goes for a wild flip and falls unconscious during the flip, and also the car and himself kind of catch on fire, and it actually turned out to be not as bad of a situation as it could have been, which is weird to say.
It was
but,
a horrible situation.
Well,
it was Nicky Lauda type stuff.
It was.
He was passed out in the car with it on fire,
and yet it was like he
with
only
the fire
walked
bottle that the World of Outlaws just said that they just mandated fire bottles. It was falling out of the car, twirling around on the track.
Yeah,
that's another thing.
Which was like another safety thing that didn't actually seem to work. So,
well, not in that situation anyway.
But I say it's not as bad because we did get to see him walk out, and he has been released from the hospital after the crash. So
we're gonna talk about more about that with our safety boys.
Yeah, it's we're gonna break that all down a little later in the show, but it was definitely something pretty scary.
It was wild,
and of course, yeah, we'll break that down. But sprint cars, man, you guys are nuts. That's all I can think about.
Especially at Knoxville.
Yeah, right. Everybody on this show who wants to say they want to
Knoxville
watch it.
even scares Glenn Stiers. That's what his crew chief used to say.
Really?
Even Glenn runs the bottom at Knoxville.
Yep. Well, why don't we end off on one kind of more international dirt story in the Wayne County debacle.
Heck, yeah, that was a heck of a debacle. Okay, so we'll set the stage. There was some rain on, I think it was Tuesday night when the All-Stars were supposed to be in Wayne County for Ohio Speed Week. They were in Wayne County. And they got there and the track looked super wet and looked like they weren't going to be able to get it packed in. And if they did, it was going to be rough. So then it turned into almost like a driver standoff where the All-Stars wouldn't unload their cars and they didn't want to race. They were trying to get it canceled. But the problem was the stands were already jam-packed, turn 4 to turn 1 with people there, and the pits were already packed. So anyway, then it turned into a All-Stars versus locals brouhaha in the pits, like not a fight, but a yelling match. I heard that turned pretty heated. There never was any video that surfaced of that. Shame on people around there for that one in the world of video nowadays, where everyone films everything. But any day, didn't get any video of that. But yeah, they were going at the locals wanted to race because they're used to that kind of stuff. That track usually gets a little bit of character, and they wanted to run because it was 10,000 to win. And the All-Stars weren't going with it. So eventually, after like 3 drivers meetings and this and that, they were going to do it. So they went out for hot laps and did time trials. And as they thought, it did get a little bit choppy. And then, so then at that point, there was another drivers meeting and they decided to make it show up points only. So whoever wanted to race, whoever was already there was getting the same points as if he won. So some guys loaded up, like Danny Dietrich and Zeb Wise, and a bunch of people loaded up before. Anyway, they still ended up with like 30 cars that raced. And shout out to the drivers. Everyone thought there was going to be torn up stuff. There was a couple broken front axles and shocks because it was pretty choppy and rough. But yeah, they didn't have any flips, not one red flag on the night. So it shows if you do drive with your head on those crazy rough tracks that you can get through it without junking cars. So yeah, but the main thing that happened, there turned into a little bit of Twitter war where I think someone said Sheldon Hodenshield should have just drove a black car and called himself whatever fake name from wherever and never take the helmet off until he was in victory lane because that was his kind of track or whatever. And then the World of Outlaw series director official's wife made some comment like he should have used one of his freebies, blah, blah. Like, because the Outlaws let their drivers run 4 races this year. That was a big change. So yeah, he should have used one of his freebies since he loves that S-hole so much. And then, yeah, that turned into a huge little bit of a thing because that's the Hoddenchild's main place. And they had the drama last year at Weedsport where the race director left Sheldon, spun out in the infield, and he ended up throwing his helmet. I believe we touched on that last year. It's still marked on Google Maps, Sheldon Hoddenshield's helmet. If you go on Weedsport Speedway Google Map, someone marked Sheldon Hoddenshield's helmet right where it landed. Anyway, so there's bad blood there between the Hodenshields and the race directors, and then they go make that post. Then it turned into a huge blow up on Twitter. And yeah, it was pretty nuts. I'm not going to lie. So definitely a lot of drama on Wednesday. Turned from a driver standoff to a Twitter war.
Yeah. And I'm always here for a good bit of tea, a good bit of tea being spilled on Twitter. I like that. That's
Tyler Courtney won the race for $10,000, rode the ruts like a champ. Just to touch on that part too.
Shout out to Tyler Courtney, and shout out to those who actually showed up to get the show in because that does matter to those fans. Yeah, it's
shout out for them to get in the show in. Yeah, with fans packed in the stands, you got to get her in.
You got to get a show in.
Got to get her in. Yep. We've done it at Merrittville. I remember one Canada Day show when I was working with Dana announcing, and yeah, we didn't get hot laps going to like 8, but people were there, had to get it done.
Yep.
And we got it done that night too.
Yeah. And we're going to get it done with a little bit of a different style interview here. And I believe, did you say we're going to have multiple guests to talk on the world?
Brandon Guttin and Joseph Bleich from RaceMed.
Yeah.
Safety guys. They hit all 3 tracks, I believe. And yeah, we're going to get into some safety with these boys.
Yeah, which is kind of a something that we don't get to talk about a lot. We're often talking about driving and racing stories, but there's a whole backside of dirt racing that doesn't get talked about enough. And the RaceMed are kind of the backbone of keeping drivers and spectators safe a lot of times too. So I can't wait to catch up with those guys on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. The Southern Ontario Dirt Show is brought to you by Ohsweken Speedway, Southern Ontario's home for Friday night excitement. For over 25 years, Ohsweken Speedway has promoted and played host to sprint car racing with a new season of family-friendly events on the horizon and set to begin May 19th. Catch our own Travis Cunningham as he races weekly in the 360 division each Friday night in pursuit of a season-long championship. The Friday night lineups are rounded out by crate sprints, thunderstocks, and mini-stock divisions as well. In addition to weekly racing, Ohsweken Speedway will also hold several marquee events for the Southern Ontario Sprints, the Action Sprint Tour in their West Series and National Series, as well as a visit from Canada's premier stock car series, the NASCAR Pinty Series on August 14th and 15th for their only stop on dirt. Mark your calendars as the 3/8 mile dirt track located in Ohsweken, Ontario welcomes drivers from across the country and beyond for the 19th running of the Canadian Sprint Car Nationals, which is scheduled for September 16th. To keep up to date with the latest news from the track, be sure to find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For track information on policies, admissions, directions, and more, be sure to visit ohswekenspeedway.ca. That's OHSWEKEN Speedway.ca. Ohsweken Speedway, your home for Friday night excitement. The Southern Ontario Dirt Show is brought to you by Bicknell Racing Products. The last 40 years plus have seen Bicknell Racing Products grow to be an industry leader for racers and enthusiasts alike. Their St. Catharines location is home to 20,000 square feet of manufacturing and retail space, with a second store in Niagara Falls, New York, and a dealer network that continues to grow day by day to serve Southern Ontario, Western New York, and beyond. Bicknell Racing Products distributes Hoosier tires for much of Eastern Canada, New York, and even parts of Pennsylvania. BRP has everything you could need to keep your car performing at its peak, with genuine parts from the manufacturer. They even have a technical support line committed to helping you with the most up-to-date information and feedback from racers and crew chiefs. Have you ever thought about a career in the automotive or racing industry? Now is your chance to take the leap with Bicknell Racing Products. They are looking for CNC machine operators, welders, and more to join their team this season. Please send all resumes to Dana Curving at BicknellRacingProducts.com. That's DANACURVIN at BicknellRacingProducts.com. For further information on Bicknell Racing Products and to find a dealer near you, visit BRP online at www.BicknellRacingProducts.com or on Facebook or at twitter.com/BicknellRacing. And we're back on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. Jonathon and Travis joined this week by Guttin and Joe Bleich. And we are talking a little safety with two members of the race med staff for our local racetracks, because this has been, it's been a pretty wild start to the year, guys. I'm sure more wild than you guys would prefer for your jobs on race nights. But thanks for coming on board and just talk. First, introduce yourselves and just talk about a little bit what your role is on race med.
Right on. So thanks for having us, boys. My name's Brandon. I think this is year 5 for me. I just moved up to co-owner, so that's pretty exciting. But yeah, just mainly fire for us and rescue, basic medical. We have our paramedics do most of the medical for us, and then yeah, Joe, take away.
Yeah, no, this is my second full year with Race Med. We do a lot of medicals as well, a lot of fires as well. I'm kind of across, so I do a lot of the medicals and fires. But yeah, no, it's pretty exciting. You learn new things, interesting things, learning how to do different styles of wrecks, how to overcome different scenarios. So it's a pretty unique job.
Okay, so you're talking about different styles of wrecks. I'm intrigued already. So like, talk about how you train for that kind of stuff. Like, I know I see at Ohsweken they use the sprint car frames a lot, but talk about the different styles of wrecks.
So I'll start, Joe. So one thing with the field that we work in, doing the rescue for the race med or whatever, there's no way to really train or prepare for what you deal with out there. It's literally just experience, man. So all of us coming in, like Joe's a volunteer firefighter. He can go to a wreck that's whatever, it's just a regular street wreck on, as a regular fire call, but you can't compare it to someone who's going 100 mile an hour barrel rolling and into a fence. It's just a whole new ball game, and I don't think there's a way to prepare for it or train other than experience. So that's one thing that's it's bad, but in a good way. Like a place like Ohsweken really gives you the whole outlook of what you got to deal with, and you go to Merrittville the next day and you're like, this is it, So um, it's a big curve that you can only learn in the field, man. Because all of the guys that we take on for interns, whatever, new positions, they ask the same thing. All right, like, what do I do in this scenario? And it's like it's hard to explain unless you're there in the moment, and then because every wreck's different too, right? So I think it's something you just learn through experience and just keep pursuing and deal with it accordingly, right? Anything else to add to that, Joe?
I think the biggest thing that we have to deal with when that comes into class is from a normal like enduro card, to a race car, you got roll bars, so and a 5-point racing harness. So you gotta, keep in mind that to get drivers out of in case of emergencies, it's a quick release latch instead of like just you're not looking for a buckle. You can't just open the driver's door and just get them out. You gotta lift them over the bars or, move a top wing on a sprint car. So you gotta keep in mind about that extra dangerous stuff that's been shredded off the vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, bottom line, it's more learning in the field than there is to teach on a book. That's
So You mentioned, like some of the staff that you might bring in for a racing season. Like, what kind of people are you looking for to join the race med team? Are you looking for like people who maybe are on their way to becoming paramedics, on their way to becoming some kind of healthcare professional? Obviously, Joe, you're volunteer firefighter, so you got that experience in your pocket. Or is race med kind of open to anybody who's willing to be a part of the crew?
So that's a good question. So I'm literally the only one on our entire crew that is not does not have a profession that involves the first responding parties. So I'm an electrician by trade, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so basically we do. So our one paramedic right now and our lead medic, it's Amber. But she's a trainee. She went to school, and we picked her up when she was in school to become a paramedic. And I think that's our best option for getting the medical staff like kind of engaged, and it gives them scenarios that they wouldn't see in the real world, and kind of gives them the confidence they need to pursue and keep going, right? So I think that's huge. So that is our goal, really, is bringing in the ones coming into school, the fresh ones, and volunteer firefighters are our main staffing, anyways.
All right, so mine's for Joe. Why? So you're Bleich. You're the first Bleich family member on the show between your old man and your two brothers that drive. And like, how come you didn't get into the driving? How come you went to the like obviously volunteer fireman, but how come you didn't get into the driving mainly?
Honestly, because it's just an expensive sport. Like you guys both know how much money you can fork out into it, how much time you got to spend in it to. So I have priorities. I want to try to get an actual house and go on in life like that. And then if I get money,
Yeah,
more money, especially on the road, I'd love to get into
I
it.
want to be
But
successful.
Gotcha.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it is a tough life, the racing business, but you guys being on RaceMed and being a part of the racing scene, you start to establish uh relationships with the drivers in particular, and I want to know how tricky it can be to manage maybe your own personal feelings. I mean, obviously, Joe, you've got family out there. You guys, like I said, you make these relationships with these people. How difficult do you find it to stay calm under pressure, especially when you personally know the driver that's in a situation?
I had one of them lately.
yeah, no, you got to look at it like as I love doing race meta, but it's also a job, right? You can't pick favorites, so you got to just do what you're doing out there, help out whoever you can. But yeah, despite having my brothers out there, I still cheer them on. I want them to do well, and I want them to win and beat everyone else because that's family. But I don't. I definitely try not to favorite any of them or any of my buddies that I know because I've been around the track for many years. I know all the drivers by first and last name, and as us on part of RaceMed, we do try our best though to help other drivers. If it's a body panel or just let them know they got a flat tire or bent rim, something to get the drivers back out there. Get them in a better mood than hey, you just destroyed $1,000 worth of damage. The rest well. Like
Man, it is annoying drive around the pits with you. Everybody knows you. Every single every
Yeah.
single driver, everybody's got something to say to Joe. So that's one thing because I'm not very known around the track, so it's funny riding with Joe.
All right, so let me go with worst wreck you've had to deal with.
Okay. So for me, I'd say probably I'd say 4 years ago, I think it was Mac the Man and Slider in the 360s at Merrittville. Um, I'd say that was probably pretty close to the worst one on the front stretch going into turn one. Both of them kind of barrel roll. I don't know what actually happened. I didn't see the wreck, but coming up to it, there was nothing but Mac the Man's car half folded. I thought it was only him, and he barrel rolled. And as we got closer, I seen Slater's car buried underneath, and he was trapped underneath. Oh, it was horrendous. I didn't know if he was alive or crumpled into pieces under there. It was pretty scary pulling up to that one.
I think I remember being on the call
That
for
was the
that one.
COVID year, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was during COVID. It
2020.
was on G-Force, I think maybe. So yeah, it
Hmm.
was that was a pretty scary
Yeah.
one for me, I'd say. But I was also very young and ambitious then, so everything was scary at that time. But don't get me wrong, it's hard. It's like just in this early season, we've had so many scary ones. Ohsweken specifically, it's been pretty gnarly the first 3 races, it was out of this world. So
Yeah, bunch of wrecks every single one.
I think we broke. I think we broke the record. We had 10 rollovers, one from every class plus on the third opening night. So
Yikes!
Yeah,
yeah, it's pretty
that's a
wild
lot.
start to the
What was
season.
your worst one, Zach, or Joe? Zach.
I think one of the scariest ones I had was last year. I can't remember which sprint car driver it was, but it was at Ohsweken. He was stuck between the fence and the wall on the back straightaway, and because he was stuck and he was like sideways and tilted upside down, so there really was no access to getting him out until we were able to hook the car up, cut the wing off, and get him out. So my worry was that I believe he was leaking fuel too. So that's a pretty stressful moment when you couldn't get that driver out in a timely manner, even if we cut him out. If it caught fire, it would still take us a couple minutes to cut him out.
And take
So,
note of the leaking fuel there, Travis. I got questions for you
That's
about that.
happened to me. That's what I was just going to ask you guys. Like, what do you do when you go to a car and it's leaking
So,
fuel?
right. So my question to you is like, is it optional or is it mandatory or do you just non-existent? Do you guys run check valves?
There is one built into the tank, but sometimes like the hose gets ripped off or something.
So that's what I figured. I figured a lot of guys run them because, I mean, for what it costs and weight for you guys, I think it's something that you guys would all agree on that is a good idea, right?
Yeah, but the problem with sprint
But
cars is the tanks rip off. That's the main safety
so
thing with sprints.
every single wreck that we go to with a sprint car that's upside down, he's always got fuel, whatever you guys are running, alcohol, methanol,
Yep.
whatever it is. It's always pouring down. And the worst I ever had was here at Humberstone Speedway. Guy was upside down, suction cupped into a puddle of mud. He's got his suit and his visors down, and he's got fuel running down his back, down his neck, filling his helmet cavity, and pouring out of his visor. And he was screaming for dear life. I've never heard a man scream for dear life till that day, and it was traumatizing, man. I'm like, how is it that this is still a situation that we're dealing with in sprint car racing? Like, I thought we were kind of more pretty advanced when it comes to sprint cars, and I thought that's insane. You guys got to have something, I would assume. Like I would, I'd be more comfortable if it's sure it broke off and now we have that issue rather than some guys are just choosing not to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. Check valves definitely. Yeah. I don't know if we do.
But
I
that
don't think I
is,
do have one in there now that you mention it.
well, you should hop on that because
Yeah,
that's
I
one
know.
thing I love to push for,
It's
man.
all sprint cars though. It's all
Every
sprint
sing
cars.
in every single one, they're
Well,
always upside down, and the drivers are getting doused with fuel, and it doesn't make our job easy. Like we this past weekend, we had a little fire up, but that's enough to catch up whatever's residue, whatever kind of you know liquids running around that's flammable, and it just makes it a little scarier for us. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned this weekend, and there was obviously a pretty scary incident involving Carson Macedo. And I kind of wanted to ask, that was one of those situations where we saw other drivers kind of pitch in and get involved in trying to get him out and get the fire extinguished. I wanted to ask from the race med perspective, if something were like that were to happen here and drivers felt compelled to get out of their race cars and help, what's the best way drivers could assist you guys in a situation like that?
So that specific incident is very hard to kind of program and even describe and how we would handle it. It's a one-off, right? Like you don't see that all the time. And you could tell by the video, those guys were panicking and like we train and like I said, it comes from experience. So we have a few new guys, but not super new. So I wouldn't put us out of the doubt for doing a good job, but it's still you're gonna have that panic there settling in. The driver's coming up. You, honest to God, you go into like a tunnel vision almost, and honestly, if that was me dealing with that wreck, you wouldn't even notice those drivers there. Like it's just
Until they all caught fire.
yeah, exactly.
They
So,
all
but
ended up catching fire in that fire.
that was the one thing that I had to say about that is every rescue driver that anyone that was there trying to help all ended up putting themselves in danger. And our number one thing is our safety is priority. So, I mean, we would have used a lot more foam rather than powder, but who knows if it would have made a difference? That's just our go-to. And from research and everything else, it would have been a better result. But who can say what, right? Like that's not
Mm-hmm.
we can't bash them because that could be us tomorrow on TV looking like fools, you know. So, um, but I'm glad he was all right and it worked out. But that was kind of a little shanty on the rescue side.
What do you think, Joe? Fireman, guys in the way or what?
Yeah, because you're adding more risk to a situation, right? So if these guys are coming in, the driver's gonna come in, and some drivers might have tunnel vision, like Brandon was saying, so they might want to help, and they're doing what general people like you'd want them to do, but if they're kind of pushing a safety guy aside, it does make life a little harder, especially with the tunnel vision. So I'm thinking maybe if a driver was to try to help, and safety's already on scene, maybe hold that top wing on sprint car, give us a little more room, maybe move something a little body.
Yeah, for sure. They could definitely help, right? I mean, it's not recommended, but if you're coming out and that's one of your boys that you love, yeah, for sure. Like it's more the merrier when it comes to disaster scenarios, right?
Well, I wanted to ask about, we talked a lot about assisting drivers, but RaceMed also is a crew that jumps into action if fans find themselves in any kind of emergency as well. So, just for, I guess, fan perspective, I guess what can RaceMed do to assist you guys? I know we've already had I think at least one, maybe possibly two situations where you guys have had to be called into the grandstands over at Merrittville, and you guys swiftly acted. And I believe it was actually Amber who was ended up being on scene with a couple of our fans. So just talk about assisting the race fans and not just drivers when it comes to being at the racetrack.
Yeah, so yeah, basically we cover the grounds of the whole track, right? So it's funny, Merrittville's happens to be a little more than the other tracks, but yeah, no, we do whatever. We get the call on the radio, we head over there and assess accordingly, right? So we got the gear to tackle just about every scenario. So
We
that's
do
our
try to,
job.
sorry, Brandon, cut you off. We do try to keep a medic in the grandstands at Maribel, especially at Maribel, during the races. So in case we can't get there, it might be a minute and a half, 2 minute response, especially if the race is going on. We already have a responder in the grandstands that's got a full kit and AED. They're ready to rock and roll in case of worst case emergencies. But even for us in the infield, we still have all the same kits as them because you never know. We might have to go to the pits. One of the pit crew guys are trying to get the car ready. They slice your arm wide open, so we got to bandage them up. So we do get medicals in there. They get pretty intense sometimes, but knock on wood. We've
Yeah.
had some close calls, but we've gotten lucky.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, lots of stuff in the stands too. Racetracks, especially when it gets hot and stuff. Fans pass out.
Yeah, every year, Maryville, when it gets hot, we always get a couple pass out and unconscious and give us a little scare. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, well, your work goes a long way, and it's definitely noticed and recognized, and it's something that I, as an announcer, have to make sure that I'm doing a good job of shouting you guys out because you guys really do respond to things quite
Oh
well.
yeah, I hear your call
Well,
outs
I
all the
do the
time.
best I
Yeah.
can for you guys because you guys truly deserve it. It's been a wild start to the season, like you guys have said. Something else I wanted to kind of ask for you guys is what um do you guys feel like you have enough support from the racetracks? Is there something more that you guys could request from that would make your lives easier right now? It sounds like you guys are incredibly stocked with all the life-saving gear that you guys could possibly need. Is it just about having more manpower on the team? Is there anything that maybe you would like to see tracks in the future implement to help make your jobs easier at the races?
Yeah. So one thing that's nice that I really enjoy is we have the race director Doug Leonard, and he does all three of our tracks that we have contracts with. And I think having the collaboration with Doug, and he knows how we work, and he knows how to send us when there's a call. He knows he can go red, or he knows how to send us and tells us where there's gaps and how we can come out onto the track over to wherever we got to go. So I think that's a huge thing. But other tracks, obviously, I can't say the same. Like I don't know, but I could assume they don't have, let's say, like I don't even believe there's another rescue company out there like us. Like I know like Brighton Speedway, those guys. I think they all got guys on quads and shorts and t-shirts still. Like
Yeah.
so as far as as far as a crew that we run and an actual company that is hired out to do this, I don't think there's many like us out there, and not in Southern Ontario, anyways.
This brings me back to the Knoxville thing because the Ohsweken crew was modeled after like the Knoxville crew, so that shows like how crazy of a scene it was with Macedo. That's because like the drivers are used to tracks not being geared up. That's why the drivers jumped out because they've had to do that before, right? But Knoxville,
Of
it
course.
had the wicked safety crew, so maybe at that point when guys like you are around and your whole team, that's when the drivers probably should leave you guys to
Well, and
handle
they
it.
feel safer. So I've heard it many times from the boys that excuse me, the boys at Ohsweken. Like you hear it all the time after a wreck or even like that small little flare up fire we had. They're very grateful for having us there, and they understand. They feel safe when they have our guys there. So I don't know how they feel about going. Like you might be able to kind of elaborate, but Travis, but at another track, like and you got nothing but a guy in the
Lots
a
of tracks are
t-shirt and
like that.
shorts on a quad.
Yep.
So like I don't know how mentally that makes you feel if you're gonna run that high line or not because you're worried you might get, a little bit of trouble, right? And you don't have a guy to
Yeah.
back you up.
That just leads me to like Cody Jacobs. He's the crew chief for David Gravel. He had a huge rant on YouTube this week talking about fire extinguishers in the car versus actual safety crew at the track, right? Because
Right.
for as like a team where the Outlaws, they have to buy 5 different fire safety things. They got 5 cars. They don't want to be switching in between cars, so it's a pretty big cost for the teams. Whereas, in my opinion,
Of
like
course.
every single track should have a dedicated fire crew with at least 2 or 3 guys ready, guys and girls, obviously, ready to rock and roll. Like to me, that's more important than the fire bottles in the cars. Is having a because
Yeah,
I've been to tracks with that guy up with the t-shirt and the fire extinguisher on the quad. Like I've been there. We've all
of
been there.
course. And
So
yeah,
to me,
yeah, it's not
Race Med,
yeah.
Ohsweken, and Knoxville are the 3 best, and other tracks need to step it up.
Yeah, so I feel the same way that a driver feels more confident strapping in that car knowing he's got, a qualified crew behind his back, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge thing. I think it's going to become, and it's sad because other tracks, nothing makes a change until something happens, right? And it shouldn't be that way. But I think there's going to be a few more things that happen, and then all of a sudden it's going to become a mandatory thing. You need a qualification,
Yeah.
qualified crew at the track. So,
Like just the fact to me that the World of Outlaws doesn't have their own dedicated traveling crew. Like the NHRA one's obviously awesome too because
and
they have
that's
nitro
weird.
fires and all that
I
kind of
thought they
safety safari.
did,
But
man.
yeah, Outlaws do not have that.
Yeah, it's
Like they make
insane
all
because
those guys spend all the money on the fire extinguishers, but then,
uh,
which is fine. I don't care about having the fire extinguishers in the car. That's safe. But then you should have your own personal
yeah,
safety crew ready to rock as
want
well.
to, yeah, you don't want to rely on what you got in your car because
Yeah,
I've
because
seen
they
it
do go to
before.
some.
Yeah, they're not
Yeah,
the best, so that's not.
yeah.
It'll help,
That's
Yeah,
but
just
it's
my
and
not
gripe.
going to
you
change.
even get situations. You get situations like on Saturday where the fire extinguisher was laying at the side of the race car. It wasn't actually even in it because the flip was so violent.
Yeah, yeah.
So, there's all kinds of situations that can go wrong. This is kind of an interesting conversation. And Brandon, you mentioned that you might have a few more things that you wanted to discuss with Travis. So I'm going to open the floor up to you guys. And if there's something you want to ask from the driver perspective or anything else you guys want to know, let it
Yeah,
rip.
so that number one thing is the check valves, man. I don't understand how you guys can run and not, like that's because you guys go.
I know some do have it, but
It's
not every sprint car tank has that. Nope.
yeah, like I don't understand how that's not a mandatory thing because it's not uncommon for. I get like the other cars, whatever, a mini stock, something like that. You don't need a check valve. It's not mandatory, whatever,
Oh yeah.
recommended. But sprint cars, you guys, it's knock on wood, but you're almost bound to go upside down once a season if you're lucky you don't. But it's insane, man. And
No, you're right.
every single sprint car wreck we go to, there's fuel just pissing down on a driver, and he's just asking, "Is that fuel? Is that fuel?" And you don't want to tell him yes, so you just say, "Hang tight, brother. We're gonna flip you over. We got tons of extinguishers. You're good to go, man." So yeah, you just kind of comfort them and do your thing. But it's the worst,
Yeah, I'm
man.
with you.
I hate seeing that, and it's a reoccurring thing way too often. So that's one thing I'd like to make a change on.
Yeah, can't really disagree with you. And they fall off. Fuel tanks fall off a lot.
Yeah, but you get an extra 2 ounces off your weight, so God forbid.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll buy one for you.
And what about for you, Joe? You got anything you want to ask on the driver's side? I mean, you obviously have two drivers kind of at the ready pretty much at all times for any questions or any safety suggestions. But from a sprint car standpoint,
From a sprint car standpoint, I'd like to try to get a integrated system for fire suppression as well on those things because sometimes, as clearly as you can see this year, we have multiple rollovers at the same time, so there might not be enough fire staff to put out two fires simultaneously, especially if they're big ones like that straight out sprint car driver just had on the weekend. So that could be
his fire suppression system was laying on the track though. That's the one problem.
yeah, exactly.
I know. I'm sure it's coming. The Outlaws and All Stars and the Modifieds got it now, so I'm sure it's coming.
So it is optional for the Outlaw guys?
No, Outlaws and All Stars have to have them as of this year.
No kidding.
But they clearly need a new mounting system because it was laying on the track.
Right, yeah, I didn't even see that in the video. I didn't know it was mandatory for them.
Yeah, it is mandatory for them now. Yep.
You guys will be next.
well, that's
Yeah.
I'm sure of it, but it's all for the better because it's the old adage, better safe than sorry. It's a cliche, but it's a good one for a reason. And you two are two of the best in the business for keeping our drivers safe locally in Southern Ontario, and we really appreciate you coming on the show and being a part of this. Thanks again, Joe and Brandon from RaceMed, and hopefully we don't have to see too much of you guys the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah, we don't say see you later. So.
No.
Okay, boys. I appreciate for having us, and that's awesome. Thanks for letting us share our input.
Yeah, for sure. We really appreciate your perspective. Brandon Guttin and Joe Bleich on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast.
Cheers, boys. Have a good night.
Cheers, eh?
You too, bud. Thanks, guys.
And the checkered is out on another episode of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show presented by Ohsweken Speedway and Bicknell Racing Products. Like what you hear, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with us on Facebook at Southern Ontario Dirt Show or find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at SODS_pod. Have a question for the show? Email us, southernontariodirtshow@gmail.com. Thanks for supporting local racing in Southern Ontario, and we'll see you at the track.